Welcome to Evolve Your Blueprint,
where we explore the concept of evolving
and discuss our journey as individuals from diverse cultural backgrounds.
Our mission is to bring real conversations,
relate through storytelling,
and empower you to evolve with us. Let's evolve together.
Welcome back to another episode of Evolve Your Blueprint. Today we're going to be talking about a hot topic, jealousy. So I'm curious, what are all of your thoughts on jealousy, and can it be a good thing?
Ooh, jealousy.
jealousy.
Who's jealous?
I mean,
not
everyone
pausing. Not everyone taking a beat. Like I just like silent for a second.
like, if you're not jealous, I mean, that's not real love, right?
Anybody toxico or toxicas here?
calling them out.
No, but for real, let's talk about jealousy, because I think it's a hot topic, like you mentioned, Brandon, because I think jealousy can often come with a negative connotation of, you know, es algo malo, it's something bad or whatever. You know, we grew up with don't be jealous or something. But yeah, how do y'all receive jealousy? What do y'all think about it?
I feel like younger parts of myself would be a little bit more jealous. I think more conscious or subconscious. Now it's more conscious, you know, and I receive it differently. And it can be like indicators of something that maybe I want to go towards. But there's jealousy in different ways, right? Like professional life, relationship. But there's so much that goes into jealousy.
Like expanding it to different parts of your life.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. You know, traditionally when think of jealousy, I immediately go to like, you know, romantic relationships, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of that thing, like, oh, las telenovelas, right? Like, you know, you see like the soap opera, like over dramatic of dramatization of, you know, what jealousy is. And, you know, like the typical men jealousy, like, oh, you know, your partner can't do this, can't do that, or, you know, that very stereotypical, like fitting in that kind of, that role. And you see it everywhere on social media, on the movies, pop culture, right? And growing up, you know, in the Mexican family and culture, yeah, it's very, very much normalized as well, right? Kind of that element of what it means. You know, it's even like this idea, right? If your man's not jealous, he don't love you, right? It's like, I mean, there's some levels
Does he
of
even
like,
love you?
Yeah, does he even love you? Like what? If he's not asking where you're going, like, you know, something's up, right? It's like, you know. But anyway, yeah, so when I think of jealousy, I think of all of that and all that brings, and messages, just kind of growing up, what you hear, what you grew up with, the circle, when you're a bunch around, when the circle of friends are a bunch of guys versus when it's family, when it's, you know, I think what you said earlier was great. Younger parts of myself, for sure, I think. So I think of all of that when I think of the word jealousy.
I feel like for today's episode with jealousy, I think really what we're trying to do is give an opportunity for jealousy to be something outside of negative, right? You know, I think like you're mentioning all of these things, true, all of it, you know, and maybe it's about giving jealousy a chance and really kind of tuning in and helping our listeners consider, you know, if I am jealous, what else could this mean besides I'm a hater? You know, like what else could this mean? Maybe it's not just that, you know, maybe it's something else. And that's actually a topic that comes up a lot with clients as well, where it's like this discomfort of like, oh, I feel embarrassed to tell you this, but you know, I was feeling really jealous about XYZ thing. Because again, I think we grow up with different messages on what it means to be jealous. I think even you're bringing up genders, right? Like I think for women, and I guess this could be overgeneralizations as well, but like I think for women, it's a negative connotation as far as like, you know, to be una persona celosa is a bad thing, you know? But I think maybe today we can talk about how jealousy is sometimes just a message, how it's a message to inform us and to alert us of what is it that we're missing or what is it that we are craving, versus it being like, oh, eres una tóxica because, you know, you're jealous. But I don't know what comes up for all of you outside of just this negative connotation. What else can jealousy be?
You know, it's framing it like this way, right? How how can jealousy be productive, right? What role does it play in like the function
All the
of
toxicas sit
jealousy?
up.
What's
Just kidding.
Take
Take
notes.
some notes here.
Oh my God, yeah.
And the toxicos.
Oh, exactly. But it's very much, when we look at jealousy, obviously from our lens here now, jealousy is a very it's a very normal emotion that we all feel. We all feel jealousy at certain parts of our life, just like we all feel joy, just like we all feel pain, just like we all feel sadness and excitement and nervousness. Jealousy is just another one of those feelings that we all have. Does it get a bad rap? For sure it gets a bad rap. But if we were to take a pause and look at it, what is jealousy trying to communicate within me, right? And oftentimes, when we are in close relationships with people, whether that be family, romantic, friendships, that's when those feelings are able to really come out more. So that's when it's useful to know, or at least to take a minute to figure out, what is this jealousy communicating to me right now?
We were talking briefly before this episode just about like cultural differences of jealousy. And what's so interesting is like the term jealousy, actually, I wasn't exposed to it until probably my young adulthood.
Really?
Yeah, it was so interesting. I felt it at certain times, but there was no word to it. It was kind of like if somebody has something that you want or you like, then you work towards it. You work towards it or use it as like a form of motivation in order to get there. And I don't know if that's a me or my family thing or if that's like a cultural piece. But as I talk to other Asian American Pacific Islanders, like there's this piece of like, you're taught to like just kind of like you stay quiet and you work towards whatever you're trying to get towards. Versus I talk to, other individuals of different cultures and it seems like it's a lot more apparent. And once again, I don't know if that goes back to, for a lot of Asian Americans, you don't speak highly a lot about emotions.
Yeah.
And so jealousy being an emotion is just not spoken about. Hence, so it wasn't until I was around other people it became a concept that was more familiar.
And it can be tied up to shame a lot, right?
Yes.
And shame is like the lowest vibration, like energy and energy emotions. That's like the lowest that you can feel. And it can feel very heavy to your body as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Shame, like this notion of like saving face,
Yes.
like having to save face. So like you don't want to, come off and feel shame or, jealousy or any of these things. So you just repress it.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I don't think you've ever told me that, that jealousy wasn't something that you were really familiar with. Obviously, of course, you knew what jealousy was, but just like not really being able to name it. And then also for you, you're saying, the jealousy that maybe I experienced younger, it was there, but it was kind of a driving force. It's almost like I see something that someone has or whatever it is, right? And it's more about how do I get there? And I think that's really interesting, actually. I feel like for me, this is maybe my mom's doing. I don't know. Of course, I'm a person that can get jealous, absolutely. But I think that in general, I feel like my mom's always ingrained in us that, when someone else is doing great, it's almost like if that person can do it, you can do it too. So I think that that's really helped with, like when you see somebody else doing well, it's an exciting thing. And it's more of a curiosity of like, kind of like a motivation of like, how do I do that too? Or, how can I connect with this person? And also figure out like, is that something that I want to do too? Versus it being like you're a hater, like where you're like, oh, this person's doing XYZ thing. That wasn't really, but we also weren't taught to be embarrassed of jealousy or anything. It maybe wasn't really a conversation about, ser celosa, but I think that might also be, my dad isn't very machista. And so we didn't really grow up with jealousy being in our household. I think, the most ongoing joke that we have is like, well, it's two of us, my sister and I, and we'll always ask like, who's the favorite, and my dad will go, tengo dos números uno, una grande y uno chiquito, right? And so, like we just didn't really grow up with a whole lot of that, but it can also, so it can be an alert, right? A message of what do we want, but also a motivation, right?
I don't know if it's a culture thing, but I feel like in the Latino culture, there is a lot of comparisons that happen, and I feel like within that there's this development that happens with jealousy too. I feel like I experienced some of that growing up, but I also see it with like my nieces and nephews. And then there's also this like gender of preference of like, who's your favorite? And there's this joke within my family, and we ask my grandparents, my parents, and their grandchildren, and they're like, who's the favorite? And they all know that my dad's favorite is my nephew Luca, who is the youngest boy, and he has. We all like subconsciously know this.
Your dad needs to be a better actor. What's going on over there? Then todos tienen que pensar that they're number one.
Right, and we always just say like no, like everybody, because I have four nieces and two nephews. So I have the oldest one. Is a boy, Nicholas, he's 20, and then there's 4 girls in between, my nieces, and then the youngest one is Luca. So there is, like this joke of like, who's your favorite? And even my nieces are like, it's Luca.
Everybody knows already.
Right. And that also like, I'm like, oh, like there's this underlining feeling of like, I hope that my nieces know their value and that there is no favorite. But it's, I don't know. I'm just kind of processing it and talking about it out loud, but, and sharing it with you guys. But, there's comparisons that happen, in families. Even me growing up, like, I was really, close, and I am with like girl cousins, right? And they would always compare us. Until now, so all my mom's side of the family, all my girl cousins, they're either married or have kids already. I'm the only woman that has no kids and is not married. So there's always this level of like, not jealousy, but comparing, because it's like I'm a woman and I want what they want eventually in the future. And that motivation is there, But there's also the self-doubt that comes within me that like, is there something wrong? But I feel like maybe this is a little bit too off topic, but yeah.
No, I think that jealousy can definitely also be a signal of where we have doubts in our lives, right? And I think, I don't know. I think I'm glad that we're talking about jealousy, because who doesn't have doubts, And so if we could kind of look at jealousy and doubts, connected, then I think all people experience doubt to different degrees, right? But I don't know. What do you think about doubts?
Like the question that popped up to me is like, okay, where does jealousy come from? Like where is jealousy rooted in? Right. If it's like a normalized, if it's a very natural emotion that we all feel, right? So we're expected, right, or we should expect to feel some of this at certain parts of our life. I think the thing that comes up for me is the intensity. If you notice yourself experiencing or feeling jealousy in an intense manner, and that intense manner is a pattern in your life, that's when we really got to be much more careful and introspective to see where it comes from, right? Because it's natural to feel the jealousy when these dynamics happen in family, career, with relationships. But if you notice that intensity is making you feel really kind of guilty inside, shameful inside, we really got to do that's our kind of information. That's our roadmap. Okay, if that's what we're noticing, then let's ask why. And it could send you down a rabbit hole for sure. So get with the therapist. We'll help you out. But the reality, the thing is, yes, when it comes to where does it come from, right? So we can start exploring. Does it come from, a lot of times it comes from difficult or maybe disrupted or convoluted attachment relationships in your life, whether it be romantic, whether it be with your primary caregiver, right? When you're initially attaching to your primary caregiver, to your parents, in other words, or anyone that was a parent in your life, a lot of times that forms how we attach to other people that we care about, our friends, our family members, our romantic partners. And if some of those attachment styles were disorganized or maybe anxious or difficult, to say the least, just to kind of use an umbrella term, then yeah, a lot of times we will reenact the same type of dynamic with close people in our lives. And then when we start feeling like some jealousy, it would do us right to do some exploration.
Speak on it. I feel like that's gold, what you just talked about,
Yeah.
because it really, I mean, we're all clinicians, right? But I think it does really come to attachment, to a sense of safety, right? Because that's really what attachment's all about, is just what allows you to feel safe, right? And or not. And that's how kind of why we behave the way we do. But you're talking about intensity, and also I think like what we do with our jealousy, right? Is jealousy something that is keeping you stuck? And, you know, for lack of a better term, like, are you just stuck in hating on everybody? You know, like, are you just stuck in hating on everybody? And it's like, that's not for me. I can't do that. Well, must be nice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, or are you going, wow, like, I feel really jealous about Alejandro or Vidi or Brandon or whoever. And you know what? I don't like feeling this way, but what can I do? You know, or why am I feeling this way? Or I don't know. I think even with romantic relationships, and I'm thinking of clients in the past, it really comes down to feeling of like enough. Like, am I enough? And again, goes back to attachment, right?
The piece, right, when attachment affects our attachment styles that we grew up with do affect how we view ourselves, how we see ourselves.
Yeah.
What we believe that we can achieve, that we can accomplish. It can be a very limiting belief as well, right? So it's, I think when you come to that piece, right, how much does self-confidence, how does that correlate with jealousy, right? What do y'all think?
It's the delivery or the external behaviors, right? Like when there is that lack of confidence, or even like when the intensity is high, the delivery of how you display it is so important to be aware of, because we were throwing around the word toxic earlier.
We're just playing
around with that term. But like, it can truly become toxic when the self-confidence is low and the frustration is elevated to a really high intensity, because the way that it's presented to the world is a form of like, you're sabotaging your relationships with people around you, but also self-sabotaging, you know, what you could potentially become. And so once again, how it's displayed is so key, and to be aware of that pattern.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point you bring up, right? It is very much, not only does the intensity hurt the relationship, but also hurts yourself inside, because it continues, you get stuck in that cycle, right? The same cycle of, now I'm sabotaging this next relationship, because if we're going on the example of a romantic partner, right? Yeah, then we're creating and recreating again similar situations where maybe my intensity of jealousy, which should be a very normalized thing, or a very natural emotion, now becomes so intense where I'm pushing my partner away. And I'm pushing them away. And then they're calling me toxico. What's up with that, right? It's not fun. It's shameful. It feels guilty. It's not great. But it's that piece of the intensity gives us the roadmap to look at what we need to use to like look in.
Yeah, so true.
It's important to have that self-awareness of that pattern and know that it's probably me, right? It's like looking in the mirror. It's like, it's me.
No, it's them. No, it's them. It's them.
It's them. And no, is there a pattern, obviously, and there's like these attachment issues with this relationship, right? And it's like constant cycle, and you're constantly like, no, it's them. But I'm like, where's the mirror? You know?
But they didn't text me back, so.
Yeah. Are you communicating? Right.
And again, I mean, those are.
It's you. It's me.
We talk a lot about how the correlation between, or the relationship between jealousy and romantic, but it also exists like in other places as well. And so I think like within the work setting of, you know, there is a level of jealousy if people have, you know, certain credentials or experience or whatever it should be. And I'm curious for all of you of like how you've navigated that. Because for me, it's always been a source of motivation of like, oh, I want to be like that person, so I'm going to bust my rear end to do what I have to do in order to get to that level. But how about for you guys?
So what got me to do what, like go into master's degree, right? I was doing a internship in my undergrad at Cal State Fullerton, and I had an internship at CAST, which stands for Child Abuse Services Team. And I was a child advocate, and the purpose of that program was to have a team of professionals that whenever they had a minor come in for sexual abuse or whatever trauma investigation that was happening, they didn't have to repeat their story. So there's a team behind this double mirror, and they can just say their story once, and then behind the team or behind this window is a team, right? So, and the therapist was with the minor. So I was behind the double mirror, and I was part of that team, and I was so in awe of this therapist interviewing the minor, and I was like, I want to do what she's doing, you know? Like, how do I have to do that? Like, I want to do that, right? Like, how do I get there? And that title, or just professionally, right? I was like, wow, I was very motivated and inspired by her. And it's not envy, but I was just more like, just motivated, inspired. And that was like the only time truly when I was younger that I was like, I want to do what she's doing. And I was asked her questions, right? Like, I took action, and I was asking her questions like, where'd you go to school? And that, for her to tell me and was open to share with me too, you know, there's that level of like, exchanging information, and not gatekeeping information, you know? And she's like, you can either work yourself up in the county, it takes you 4 to 6 years, or you can go for your master's degree in 2 years and do what I do, kind of a thing. And I'm like, well, I guess I got to go for my master's. And then that's when I applied. And literally that's what got me to go for a master's degree. And I was like, okay. And that was a big, like, professionally, that's the only time that I can recall right now. But I was like, I was motivated. I was like, I looked up to that person, and like, I want to do what she's doing.
You use the word envy. So I'm curious for you, Viti, like, is there a difference you feel like between envy and jealousy?
Yes. I feel like envy is such a stronger, it has like a stronger connotation, meaning, and power behind it. I feel like envy for me, when I think about envy, is like bad vibes, you know? And yeah, I feel like jealousy can be healthy. It's just that response and the intensity of it, like Alejandro said. Yeah.
Have you been jealous professionally? I'm over here thinking, and I'm having a hard time, so that's why I was
Yeah.
what about you, Alejandro?
Yeah.
Similar. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there is professionally time where I felt jealous. I mean, I'm sure there is. Maybe I'm just blanking, because how could I not? It's like
He's like, no soy tóxico.
younger parts of myself. Maybe.
No, but yeah, it's hard, right? I'm having a hard time with that one too.
Because I definitely have had moments where I'm like, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure, like 100,000%. I don't know if I would say jealous, but yeah, I don't know if in that setting necessarily. There's always been times where I've wanted to, like, I wanted to learn that skill that maybe my colleague has done, or maybe going to trainings and really kind of just being blown away of how great the speaker was, and like, I want to learn that, I want to do that, or I want to be able to, you know, bring that into my clinical tool belt, for sure, right? But yeah, I don't know. Struggling with that right now, maybe.
How about younger versions of yourself? Like, I only know the Alejandro who sits in front of us today. Like,
Be professional.
I don't know the teenager version, or even the 20-year-old version. How about like those eras in your life?
I mean, yeah, well, that's a whole other can of worms, guys. Yeah, you're talking to a now someone that's obviously been through therapy and been through all that lovely ongoing journey of life. But yeah, I mean, for sure. Going back to the relationship piece of, you know, dating or whatnot. Yeah, I mean, definitely. Again, it's like going back to now, looking back, of course, I can see a lot of layers that were there, right? The attachment styles, the layers of the masculinity, the machismo, like the culture, you know, I mean, I grew up with a bunch of guys, like all guy cousins, usually maybe we had like 2 female cousins. Like, it was very, very, at least the cousins that I was more around, at least. But anyway, so a lot of that definitely influenced. So, and I had a lot of older cousins, so I would see kind of, oh, this is how I guess you're supposed to date with, with women. This is what you do. Like this is the normal, right? And then like it was just trying to balance that world of what it was like. And I remember just being an undergrad, like having like my first girlfriends or whatever, and it was like. Yeah, I there's marked moments where I'm like looking back, I'm like, oh my God, that was so bad. Like, who was I doing? Like, just like horrible, right? Stuff that you just cringe about, and I'm sure we all can have those moments.
Yes.
But for sure, right? Like where I was definitely say my intensity of jealousy was very much present, and I had the denial part was like, no, it's them. It's them. They're not.
If she wasn't acting that way,
if
I
they
wouldn't
were
be
behaving
jealous.
that way,
Yeah.
I would not feel this. So they should change their behavior. Yeah. Now it's like okay, but for sure, and throughout the different stages of my life, and you go and having to kind of be hit on the head with it a few times to suffer the consequences of that, and knowing like okay, yeah, that's not gonna be something that if I want to have a successful, healthy relationship, I'm going to have to really look in and change some internal things about my thinking and kind of my identity and how I view myself. And also that means I'm also going to have to challenge what my views on masculinity means, perhaps in my kind of environment that I was. And that means I had to lose some friends. I had to say goodbye to some people, right, that I know were not going to grow that way with me. So that was some of the transitions. I had to say goodbye to people so I can really focus on, yeah, this is not really what I want, right? It felt great in that moment, right? Because it matched the intensity that maybe I wanted. And then as soon as that intensity faded, you're left with the kind of secondary effects of discomfort and not great.
I still can't think of a professional one, but what I could think about is because a lot of my clients are professionals, things that maybe they don't identify as jealousy, but I could see sometimes is jealousy for them, or a message, right? A message that's coming up is when they are in a workplace and they're a part of a team or working with others, and I could see that they get bothered sometimes when they don't get the acknowledgement for their work. So I want you to imagine, kind of like we're talking about favorites, sometimes workplace has favorites. And so that can be really tough for people when you're busting your butt off, right? And then somebody else gets the bravo, you did such an amazing job, when really behind the scenes you were also doing some work. But I think again with that, in the professional workplace, if you're finding that there's a sense of jealousy of like, this person keeps moving up, or this person, always gets the awards, or etc. How do you use that jealousy for understanding like, I also want some acknowledgement, and that's okay. I don't have to be ashamed of professionally wanting some acknowledgement, or I don't have to be ashamed of being jealous because this person got the promotion that I really wanted. But instead, how could you use that as a form of motivation to like, do something? Maybe it looks like communicating. And I think when you think about, again, this could apply to many people, but I think here it's for children of immigrants. I feel like we're sometimes not taught to boast about ourselves, to speak on, all the amazing things that we're doing. And unfortunately, sometimes in the workplace, obviously we all have our own businesses now, but like in the workplace, people move up when they speak on themselves, and it's so unnatural, I think, a lot for children of immigrants to be like, oh, I did this and I did amazing this. And I think that sometimes keeps them behind, not because they're not doing amazing work, but because they haven't learned how to talk about that, because it feels like outside of what we're taught. You're supposed to be humble. My hard work should speak for itself, but sometimes it's the loud person who says, I did this and I did that, and that gets rewarded. But I don't know, that's kind of what came up for me when you asked that, because I was like, dang, I don't know. No soy tóxica. I'm just kidding. But I really couldn't think of a time where I was jealous professionally, because I align more with what you're saying, Vidi, in that there are so many people throughout my professional life that I've admired. I admire all of you in different ways, but it's not jealousy. It's more like, wow, that's really cool, or I like that, or like a drive, so.
Definitely also resonated with Alejandro's younger parts of being kind of like, oh, it's not them, it's me.
Recovering toxical.
So definitely parts of my younger self in relationships, right? And really noticing that pattern and my younger part of myself expressing it or seeing it and the intensity of it. But because I've done so much work on myself, I see things a lot different now. Yeah, definitely. Younger part of myself, when I was like 26, I was dating someone that was in the music industry, or he is in the music industry, and him being around a lot of women, it's very normal to be around a lot of women in that industry. And internally, yeah, there was a lot of jealousy there. Did I communicated it? I don't remember if I really did. But now look at it, like I'm 36, and all the work that I've done, I'm like, okay, definitely see it. Yeah.
It's you bring that up, and it's I'm thinking about the relational safety piece,
Yes.
right? So it's like so when we feel jealousy, and this is for everyone, of course, but when you feel jealous, right, there is that, you want to ask yourself, is there intensity there?
Yeah.
Right? And then you also got to know, okay, why is the intensity there? Something about me. But then there's also the actual fact, right? Like, hey, is the person that I'm with, do I know them? And do I know that what they're doing, right? And maybe we're in denial of it, or maybe we kind of hope that they will change, right? So there's that element of like, I'm jealous because I know they're, and what does that mean? That means that there isn't that relational safety. Yes. That means there isn't that real secure attachment there with my, at that time, person, right? So we also want to look at that piece for everyone that hearing us. We're like, hey, well, sometimes people do cheat, or sometimes people are breaking like relationships, right? Yes, 100%. So go back to that, right? Like
definitely. Yeah. Even thinking about a client right now as you're talking, that I see, and yes, if there is that history of infidelity, there is that major indicator of your jealousy being valid there, and that the safety and the trust within that partner needs to be repaired. It needs to be worked on. So.
Absolutely. And without that repair work, without it being like processed, are you really ever going to feel, right, completely just like cool with that, right? Like that's like, I think that we're setting we're going to set ourselves up for just a constant kind of just fear, right? Fear of something to happen, unless that gets processed and worked out. Or maybe that's your sign to leave the relationship, right? And to say goodbye. Right. It's like, and then when we go into the next relationship, right, being mindful of that part of ourselves that maybe very much experienced something previously in the relationship. Now we're coming into a new one with some of those same types of, hopefully a healthy one and a great one, right? But there is that part that may kind of come back up. Fears. Yes. Will this happen to me again? But this time I'm hyper aware of it. I'm hyper vigilant. I'm knowing the signs. And in knowing the signs, we do it for protection, self-protection. But then we go back to initially, but does that self-protection push our partner away? And then you're back into that like loop again. I'm doing it for protection, but by protecting myself, I'm pushing away.
No, I love that you even brought up infidelity, right? And again, if we're thinking about jealousy as the theme today, if we can just look at jealousy as a messenger, right, versus it being a negative thing, then for a person who's experienced infidelity, then, your jealousy is just informing you we haven't repaired enough, or we haven't communicated enough for us to have that safety. And that's a lot of hard work, to maintain that relationship. It's not impossible. There's a lot of couples who choose to, repair the relationship after infidelity. And then there are some people that are like, no puedo, I cannot do this, right? But I think it is possible. It just takes a lot of that work, both for the individual who got cheated on to look at and feel safe enough to talk about it, and for the person who was disloyal to be able to take accountability and also hold space, right, in that dance. I mean, that's a whole process in of itself. But it all comes back. Jealousy comes back to that emotional safety component. And, I don't have to go back too much. I'm like, what are things that I get jealous about now, And, you're talking about your, the person that you dated when you were in your 20s, right? And And, you know, for him, you're saying he was around women probably a lot because of the industry that he was in. And for me, actually, it's kind of silly and we kind of laugh about it. But, you know, my husband is an engineer. So unfortunately, because I hope that there's more women in STEM, you know, but the reality is that their field is a lot more, there are a lot more men in his field. And so it's really funny because most of the time when I hear Tim talk about work, it's like, you know, Brian this and men, right? And every now and then he'll say a woman's name and I'll notice myself go, you know, but it's not so much like I am not trusting him or anything. It's more like I notice like my little antenna goes, oh, it's a woman, you know, but you know, and then I'll tell him like, so who's this person? You know, ¿quién es esta persona? And he'll be like, oh my gosh. And he'll kind of just laugh. But I think that it goes back to that relational safety. I'm able to talk about him. We're like, so who is this? And we kind of joke about it. And then in us kind of joking around about it, that's it. I don't need anything more. It's just kind of like silly, but yeah, jealousy is not something that we have to be ashamed about. I think it's something that, you know, with communication or just, owning it, you know, and, I think that can go a long way.
Yeah. Accepting that that's part of our makeup.
Yeah.
Right. Jealousy, hear it from, and fellas, hear it from a male therapist. Yes, jealousy is a natural feeling, right? Just look out for that intensity. Yeah.
And for women, you know, I think if you feel jealous of others, it doesn't have to mean that you are a hater. You know, although you can be, but you know,
and you're not a toxica maybe either.
Yeah, it can just be. Can you get curious about what does this mean for you?
Get curious.
You know, what do you want? Is there something that you're feeling doubtful about? Right.
And I also think there's unhealthy dynamics too. Like there are people who will purposely or maybe even unconsciously date someone who is a little extra and it reinforces this unhealthy dynamic. And so doing your own work, right? Like seeing professionals as ourselves, or, you know, as, you know, each of us have our own businesses, and finding a therapist you can really connect with is so important.
Yeah.
Because bringing that to the surface of like therapists calling out like, oh, this is the pattern that we're seeing is so important. Because otherwise the patterns go kind of on under the radar.
They become normalized.
Yeah,
Patterns
exactly.
become normalized. It's like if they're not jealous, that means they don't love me.
Exactly.
Wait, what? Wait, no, I get what you're saying, but really?
It's like, where did you learn that narrative? You know? Like, where'd that coming from? Let's sit with that.
You're like, I learned from Dos Mujeres Un Camino. You know that novela? You know? It's like,
Dude, yes.
yeah.
And it's the energy you're attracting.
Of course.
So as Brandon was talking about that, I'm like, attraction, right? And if you're attracting that, it's you, you know, and that's where you got to process what is within you that you are bringing in these patterns in men or women.
You know what? I don't think we thought about this one, but again, I'm trying to just think out loud here with all of you. Like, I feel like I sometimes get jealous of like not even people. I get jealous of work. Here's what I mean by this. So like, I think, you know, for me in my relationship, quality time is super important, you know, and so I sometimes get jealous of my husband, just not jealous of him, not jealous of, you know, it's more like, it's more of like, I get jealous because he's working, you know, like for example, on a weekend, like he might be like working all day long and I'm just like, oh, like I really just want to hang out, but I know he's working. And so I sometimes get jealous of work, right? Not necessarily like of a person, but again, I'm using the word jealous. I know that that's a kind of a silly way to use it, but again, to kind of use it in these other forms of it's a messenger to me of like when I start getting resentful of work, it's because I really miss you, you know? It's not really anything else, or I can understand it, but that doesn't mean that I don't feel this missing. So that's another thing that popped up.
No, that's such a great example, because I think that's a very common thing, especially with families, with, you know, couples, just general family. Like when the typical setting, right? When one or the other is working a lot, right? The partner or the child or the children in that family can definitely feel like they miss their parent, their loved one, their spouse. And yeah, I guess we can even say, yeah, it could be even jealous of work. I'm jealous because work always comes first before me, right? So then you start to feel, you start to feel a little hurt by it, or you start to feel like, resentment that can brew into, for sure, some resentment, yeah.
And I think for me, like, just talking about it, be like, oh, like, I miss you, you know, and having that conversation or having that acknowledgement of like, I know I've been like really busy, or, you know, it's a season, or, you know what, you know, in a few weeks, I'm going to be done with this. Like, it's enough to kind of build that relational safety and be like, no, I know, I'm just letting you know, kind of thing. It's not, sometimes even there's not things to fix. It's just, again, it's that acknowledgement of, oh, like I'm feeling some type of way about this, you know, but that's really it. It's nothing else, but yeah.
And there's a level of like, Kaylee, that you have that self-awareness of like, quality time is important to you, right? Yeah. So you being able to communicate that to him, right? And that also is very important.
When we're able to talk, when we're able to see what jealousy is trying to communicate to us, we're able to take that moment to really reflect and identify what that is, and then trust the safe relationship that you're building or have built with your partner, and you're able to discuss and repair some of these things. That's when you know you're breaking, when you're breaking patterns.
Breaking the pattern.
You're breaking patterns, and you're really working towards, again, relational safety, which I think is, or I think we all think here, is the antidote for jealousy, right? When it comes to that intensity.
You know what else I thought about is sometimes, again, looking at jealousy in different ways, that it's not always like with, you know, work or romantic relationship. Like, I also hear this a lot from moms, you know, when I'm working with moms or newer moms, right? And they talk about, you know, my husband gets jealous because, you know, he'll say things like, you know, everything's about the kids now, you know, and you don't really spend time with me, or, you know, whatever. And so again, it's not so much that, you know, it's jealous of this particular child. It's essentially the message behind it is, I really miss you, or I really am whatever, like, what is it that you're missing? But I think that if in those cases you get caught up with like, oh, this person's just jealous and this is a negative thing, we lose sight of how you can repair it, or how it's an opportunity to kind of communicate more of like, what do you mean? You know, like, what's going on, or what can we do here? You know, that this is a transition. But I do hear about that a lot with new moms, or new moms who say, you know, I'm jealous, must be nice for my partner to be able to do their lives, you know, go ahead and, you know, just do their day-to-day, come home, and then, you know, be with their kids. I'm with this kid all day long, and I lost all of this stuff, and so must be nice, I feel jealous of this person, right? But again, what is it alerting us? You know, what are we wishing for? Jealousy doesn't have to be a negative thing if we use it as an opportunity. Were you going to say something, amigo?
No.
Oh, I thought you were. I thought you had that. You just had a pensive face. I was like, oh, did I miss a spot?
No, I was
miss
just
something
taking
that
it
you were
all
going
in
to say.
that you were saying.
When we hear the word jealous, or if the person you love is saying you're jealous, etc., go into it. I think to your point, don't get stuck at that word. That's just the first kind of piece. We got to go into that. What does it communicate? What is it saying? What is the message behind it? That's when you get into the real work.
The only other part that I think that we didn't mention, which briefly I'll mention, is experiencing jealousy amongst friends. I've experienced that. Yeah, friendships. Being able to connect or spending more time with a certain friend, and then another friend would mention it or get jealous of our quality time, kind of a thing. That dynamic, right? And I was like, I would just notice it and get curious about it. But friendships, jealousy.
Yeah. Well, like when there's like a group, like if there's like a group of friends and like, you know, maybe one or a few connect more than the others, and you're saying kind of like noticing jealousy. That can be hard, right?
It is.
That must be so hard both on the receiving end, right? Of, let's say that you are the person that's closer to somebody and you're like, I'm just hanging out with them. It's not that deep, you know? But on the flip side, right? For the other person, you know, that must be also hard for them of like, oh, I feel kind of left out. But instead of being able to say like, I feel left out, are we being haters?
Right.
You know, are we being haters again, you know?
But that person isn't able to communicate, right? So she comes out as toxica. But she's not able to communicate really what is happening.
That's
right.
tough.
And what her need is, or Yeah, like
Which sucks because if she, in this case, if she's not sharing, hey, I'm feeling left out, or I want to be invited more to XYZ things,
Yeah.
then and instead is making comments or whatever,
Yeah.
passive comments, then the whole message is missed because, for on the receiving end, you're like, what? Like, you're tripping. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right? So that sucks.
Yes.
So what'd you do with that? Hamal, tell us the tea. What'd you
cheese?
do? Yeah, but like, what do you do with those cases? Right? Because again, I think it goes back to like understanding of self, trying to understand somebody else, but like, también, we're not mind readers, right?
Yeah, no, just noticed it and communicated with essentially the other person. Like, are you noticing what I'm noticing? And like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Right? It's like, yeah. And I'm like, it just sucks, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not friends with this person anymore,
Yeah.
essentially, right? But it happens. It happens.
It does.
Like Alejandro earlier was sharing a little bit of his younger parts, right? And releasing and letting go of those even friendships that you outgrow. And that's what happens too. And you start to realize some of those patterns, and then you start to break those patterns within yourself. And with those breaking of the patterns and those cycles, it comes with also breaking up with certain people.
Truth.
Well, it's a good thing you'll never have that issue here because we're the coolest group of friends that you have.
Of course.
We get curious, which I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to that, something that's different now that, I don't think are we aging ourselves, but I don't think we really grew up with, right, is social media, in the sense of, I think growing up, the most hating I did because I missed out was, not getting to go to the movies on a Friday like everybody else, because my mom would be like, you have to be home by 8 p.m. and everybody's getting to the movies at 7, and I'm like, it's 8 p.m. I got to go home, but the reason I bring that up is because I think now social media does play an influence on how people feel about
100%.
themselves, about their friendships, because let's say that let's say that all four of us are cool, right? And then, whatever, let's say that Brandon is hanging out, on a Sunday with his wife and he's having a great time. And then all of a sudden he sees on social media, Kaylee, Alejandro, and Viri decided to go out to dinner and they didn't invite me. And so now it becomes like is there something wrong? Right? Whereas back in the day, it's like that could have happened and that wouldn't have been a threat to the friendship that we have with him. It only became a threat when he was aware of it, that, and so I don't know, I feel like really to that friendship thing that you're talking about, I think it's when, again, relational safety. If we don't feel secure with ourselves and that friend or that friendship, then somebody else becomes a threat to you.
Exactly.
Instead of just owning, we each have our own friendships and one doesn't have to be a threat to the other.
I think that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
I think it's so true. And I think comes when we don't have that relational safety, we can build it, we can work on it, we can choose to work on it, right? And relational safety doesn't just come out of nowhere. It's not instantaneous. You actually have to work at it.
Yeah.
You actually have to really try. And I think that can be very difficult, right? And again, it takes work, but it's something to look for, I think.
It's a level of vulnerability.
Oh, yeah.
It's a level of vulnerability that not everybody's used to, right? So it takes a lot, and it's practice in communicating it and knowing yourself.
And for our audience to
Self-awareness.
know that there's support in doing so, and to reach out, whether it's family, friends, professionals, whatever it should be, to get that support, so important.
Because even with the friendship, I'm just now thinking about this friendship idea, right? Because I do think it also comes up a lot with my clients,
It does. With my
sometimes
clients too.
when you have a space to kind of process it and say these are the dynamics, or this is what's happening, or whatever, then the question becomes, well, tell me how much you care about these friendships. They're not inviting me anymore because, every single time that, they invite me, I say no. And so now they didn't invite me and I feel some type of way about it. And so then the question becomes, well, was it a time thing? Are they not really a priority, but you're feeling this need to kind of I have to maintain these friendships, but maybe you actually don't care too much about them. And so we kind of process it. And so to your point, Brandon, it's to everybody, right? What we're really saying is can you develop your relationship in understanding jealousy? Where does it come from? Do I really care? Or is it more I feel whatever? I don't know. Just it all comes back to just that self-awareness, and it can be a good thing to notice.
Yes. So we invite you to get curious about where is your jealousy coming from. And if someone else is expressing their jealousy to you or communicating it to you, seeing it in a message way. So it's an indicator for you, something to reflect on.
Bye, toxicos. I'm just kidding. Bye.